Okay, we'll get started. Everyone on Zoom, if you're able to let me know, just like a quick chat, if you are hearing and you're seeing me in the presentation and everything you need to see here. I'm gonna wait for that okay before starting. Okay, I see raised hand. Yes, yes, cool. Awesome, great, okay. So this is Data Your Way, Streamlining Workflow with Dynamic View. I do want to just quickly note this is a duplicate session from yesterday. So if you already did the Dynamic View session yesterday, then we're going to be covering the same stuff. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so if you haven't met me yet in other sessions or otherwise, my name is Jillian Chavez. I'm a program specialist with HSC Finance and Administration, and I am also your HSC system admin, one of them anyway. And so yeah, if you have any issues with anything, license requests, those types of things, I will deal with those for you on the HSC side. All right, so what we're going to be going over today is what is Dynamic View, key features, and then we'll go into the solution demonstration to actually get into Dynamic View and look around and see what it looks like in there. And then we'll go to resources and getting started. All right, so what is Dynamic View? Dynamic View is a way to share specific data from a Smartsheet. Without giving full sheet access. So it is one of our premium apps that we have access to. And again, it's just that we want to give people data after their submissions through our sheet, but we don't want to give them access to our sheet, right? We don't want them in our main sheet. Maybe I have a lot of stuff going on in there. I don't want them to delete stuff. I don't want them to see maybe my internal stuff. So this is a way that we can give them access without giving them full access. The purpose is, again, to control what others can see and edit. So examples would be maybe request tracking, status updates, maybe approvals, The options really are endless, though. We've done this with events as well. So, maybe we have a schedule or something, we can give access to that in Dynamic View. You have a lot of options there. All right, so what are the benefits of Dynamic View? So we can securely share only relevant rows and columns, simplify collaboration without exposing sensitive data, provide an easy interface for external or internal users. Just be mindful with external users. They might have to jump through a little bit of hoops, might have to create an account, that sort of thing. So if you are working with people outside of UNM, you can run into some issues with sharing, but it should be available in some instances. And then reduce errors and confusion. All right, so what are the key features of Dynamic View? So there are row level permissions, customizable view layouts, edit, update, or approve directly from the view, and then automated refresh for up-to-date information. So your main sheet is always going to be tied to your Dynamic View, and your Dynamic View is always going to be tied to your sheet. So any changes made on either end will reflect on both sides. So just keep that in mind. You can never have a Dynamic View just outside as a standalone item. It's always going to be linked to a sheet or a report. Right, so when to use Dynamic View, again, it has multiple uses, but some of those can be managing requests, leave requests, IT, facilities requests, tracking progress, updates from multiple people, sharing status with stakeholders, and allowing edits without full sheet exposure. Again, big one. All right, so we are going to jump into the app, but accessing and creating a Dynamic View. From Smartsheet, you'll navigate to the Dynamic View via the launcher. So I'm going to show you this, but I do want to mention, if you are not seeing this in your launcher, you will need to first go to dynamicview.smartsheet.com, and it'll have you just log in with your normal Smartsheet login, and then you'll be able to access it. All right, so and then you'll create a new view and link it to your source sheet or report. And then you'll define the filters to control what appears and adjust column visibility, which we are going to get into. Okay, so setting permissions. We're going to assign access by email address, define role-based permissions, view only, edit certain fields, those sort of things. And then we can test access before sharing widely. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into the solution demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and go over there. Just a second. And here. Okay, this should be it. Okay. Oh, 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 oh. Sorry, I don't know if it looks crazy. Oh, it's not. Let's see. What is going on here? Okay, share. Why is it showing that on screen? Just a second. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get out of these. There we go, I think. It's glitching a little bit on me now. Okay. Okay, so everybody should, I'm sorry that it looks like this on our end, guys, but hopefully it'll kind of go away a little bit. All right, so if you are not seeing my main Smartsheet screen, please let me know in the chat. But right here down at the bottom left corner of your screen, you'll see that this is the launcher right here. So when I click into this launcher, you'll see I have all my different apps in here. These are all of our premium apps. It might look slightly different between main campus and HSC, but for the most part, we have access to the same apps. And again, if you are not seeing an app, go to the actual, put the link in, you know, if it's calendar app, calendarapp.smartsheet.com, dynamicview.smartsheet.com, you know, all of those. And if you're not sure the link, you can always just Google it. And then from then on, after you log in, it will show here in your launcher. So yeah, so I'm going to go into dynamic view. And all right, so this is what it looks like when you open up dynamic view. You can see we have the toolbar over to the side here. If I toggle over this, you can see I'm opening the home panel. We have a recents panel. We have a favorites panel and then a new view option there. So I'm here on the home tab, and when I am in here, it gives me all my views. So it tells me I have 212 views. And then if I go down here, which ones are my views? The ones that I can manage and, you know, edit. So I have 52 there, and I can scroll through and look here, and I can also search. And then you can see this button here to create the new view. So I can do that there. The shared with me is, you know, maybe people do share them with you, and you want an easy way to kind of go find it. You know, you don't own it, so you'll go down to shared with me and kind of find them that way. All right, so then it's shared with the group. So we'll talk a little bit more about this in when we talk about how to share your dynamic view. But dynamic view does have the ability to share by domain or by group or domain. You can create groups in Smartsheet. So this kind of tells me, right? So this is shared to the HSC SPO group, right? But if I keep going down, you can see this one's a domain. It's shared to salud.unm.edu. So let's say I'm maybe like I have courses that I'm offering or something like that. And I don't necessarily know who's going to be attending those courses, right? But I want them to be able to access the dynamic view that I made for them. So I know they all have Salud emails, right? So I'm just going to share it to Salud, and then I'm going to send out that dynamic view link. And then I know that when they come in here, they'll be able to access it because I'm not sharing individually to each person. As those come in, they just all have access to it. So some of these are shared by Salud, but you know, I can't see anything because I'm not in this view, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit in a second. But just because you share by domain does not mean people are going to have access into your information. So just keep that in mind. All right, so recents is very similar to the main Smartsheet application. It's going to show you your recent ones that you've opened, and then you can pin them to the top if you would like. Same with favorites. So if I go over here and I go into my home tab and I go to my views, and let's say this one, and I want to favorite it, I can do it from the view. So I think it's moving slow today. Sorry, guys. All right, so this is what the view looks like when I'm in it, but you'll see that there's a little star here. So I can make it a favorite, and then when I come down to my favorites, it's gonna be there. I would recommend it because when you go in here and right here, it could be a little crazy, right? So you want to favorite or at least pin your most used views. And then you could do a new view from here if necessary. You will not see the admin controls on your screen, so we don't have to worry about those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into this view that I pinned. So this is what it looks like whenever you are in the dynamic view and you actually have access to the data inside of it. So whenever you're in here, you'll see that these are the rows corresponding to the sheet. They correspond with my actual submissions through a leave sheet. But what you'll recognize here is you can't click in here and edit anything right here. Nothing at all. So whenever you are creating a view, you do want to keep this pretty simple. I think that I kind of even have maybe too many columns on my view. Maybe I don't need that. Maybe this would be something where like my name would only need to be here, and then maybe start date, end date, you know, just depending. If it was like a project, maybe project ID, just something so they know, okay, this is the row that I'm looking for. When I go and I click into this row, this is where those edits matter a lot more, the details panel. So when we explore this a little bit, you can see some of these are editable and some of these are grayed out. So some of them are read only and some are editable. So it's really nice because, you know, when we're looking at update requests in our sheet, right, that's another way to get information from people by sending an update request. And it's a great way, but you don't have as much customization as you do in dynamic view. You can see here, I have some help text for people so they know what they're doing, you know, on every field. So it's very similar to forms. I can make things read only, you know, editable, add help text, change the label, whereas you cannot do any of those things with an update request. So just keep that in mind when you're kind of deciding, do I send an update request or do I use a dynamic view, you know? So yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and get into the actual details of these a little bit more, but these are just kind of the fields that I wanted them to have access to in case they needed to come in and edit it, right? And then if we look up here, we'll see it automatically is opening to my data, but I could toggle over, look at attachments, and I could toggle over again and look at comments if there is any attachments and comments corresponding with the rows in my sheet. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go into, oh, and then this is where if you have filters created or if you wanna create a filter on it, you can do that there. And then you can just like wrap text and then show or hide. If I wanted to hide the formatting, I could do that. And that's just the formatting that's set on the main sheet, right? So, and then I could wrap text if I find that necessary to do so, which, you know, you could do that. All right, and then if I want to add a description, I can hover over it and it'll show here. So submit a new leave request here is what I have on this one. But then if I go back to my main views, you'll see that this is actually really helpful when figuring out what is this that I'm shared to, you know, right? Who shared this with me and why? So it says, you know, this view is for approvers to view any requests in their queue. Please review your information and update any fields, you know, so you do want to make that very clear for the people that will be accessing your dynamic view. And we're going to be going into the settings now so we can see how to do every single one of those things. All right, so I'm going to go, if you have admin permissions or if you are the owner of the view, you will have this little gear here to be able to edit the dynamic view. So when I go in here, the first thing you can see these different tabs here that I could toggle through. It starts off with general. When you go to create a new view, you will select the source sheet or report. And then you have to name your view. So your view doesn't have to be the same name as your sheet or anything like that. It's going to show me my sheet name down here, and you can see it's different. It says FSD leave requests, but it's the requester view. And then I have an approver view as well. So the approvers can come in and just approve in my dynamic view rather than having to answer emails if they want to. And then I have my description. This is what I just showed you when you hover over the little I or from your main homepage, it'll give you this description. So, you know, whatever makes sense for your team, you'll want to add in there. So I want to note that once you select your source sheet, you cannot change it. If you want to go in and change it, you will have to create a brand new dynamic view. So that's where a report can come really handy. So we do have a process where we save the sheet as new. We make a copy of the sheet every fiscal year. So we want all of our dynamic views to be pointing to the new fiscal year sheets, right? So what we do instead of creating a new dynamic view every single time is we point the dynamic views, because we actually have like 6 dynamic views that point to that specific sheet. So what we do instead of changing the dynamic view or creating new ones, we have it pointed to the report, and on the report, we'll delete out the old sheet, add the new sheet on the report. So, or if you have, let's say, multiple departments and they're all rolling up into one master report, you know, you can have them all roll up into your master report and then point the dynamic view at that rather than creating 5 different dynamic views, right? So you can do that. I will just say as a quick note, just make sure that if you are rolling up, like, let's say 5 different departments leave request sheets into one singular report, you will want the naming conventions to be the same. If they're different in any way, it will not report back properly, and it'll just add them all as new columns instead of reporting it all under the one start date or whatever it is. So just keep that in mind. In my opinion, one of the best features of dynamic view is the restrict view by current user. So if I click down here, you'll see all of my different contact list column types, and this view is restricted by email. So I can send this one link to everyone in the team. They're going to open it and they're just going to see their request. So you might have noticed that when we were back in the view, it was just showing mine. But if I send it to Dina, that same exact link, she doesn't have a different link than me. She's going to go into that link, click on it, and she's going to see her requests. So this is a really, really helpful feature. And you can see, so this is my requester view, so it's set to email, but in my approver view, I have it filtered by the leave approver. So my leave approvers will go in and they'll just see theirs. So you can also do no restriction. There are uses for that sometimes. So maybe it's like a project sheet, and maybe you don't want to filter it by the project manager. You want everyone to come in here and see all the projects, right? You don't have to utilize this. You can select no restriction. All rows will be visible to everyone shared. So just keep that in mind. But that is really nice. So similarly, I don't use it as often, but if you want to restrict the view by a sheet filter, then you can do that as well. So let's say you want this dynamic view to only be pointed at a certain like department or something, you can do that, but just keep in mind, so these filters, they're already built on my main sheet. So you have to build the filter on your sheet, and then they'll show up as an option here to choose from. Yeah, and then, okay, so also you can do new item submission. So if you want your dynamic view to work similarly to a form, you can allow them to add new items through the dynamic view. So if you kind of want it to be a one-stop shop, you can do that. I will just say as with anything in Smartsheet, you will want to play with it a little bit, because if you have certain fields restricted or like as a read-only, then it could pull that into your new submission, which I've seen in the past. Maybe Smartsheet has kind of remedied that since I last looked at it, but just keep that in mind, whenever you're creating your dynamic view. You also have the option to export to a CSV file. So if you want your users to be able to do that, then I can toggle that on, and it'll just have a little download button on the side where they can do that. So maybe it's like a project task list or something, and you want them to be able to export it for one reason or another. You do have the option to do that. In this case, I don't have it on there just because we haven't had a need for it, but it is an option there. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and toggle over to view display. I want to show you very quickly. So this says view display, this says details panel. When I go back to my view, this here is my view display. This is what I'll be editing. When I click in here, this is my details panel. So just keep that in mind when we're editing here. So in my view display, what do I want them to actually see? So again, I find that you want to be very clear about what you're showing them. I would put less. I think less is more here because we don't want them to be scrolling through a million columns, right? When they can't do anything with it, you know, that this is just so they can recognize the row and they know what they're looking at there. You know, you might have a need to give them a lot of information. Maybe you want to allow them to export to CSV, or maybe you don't want them to touch very much things in your details panel, but you want them to view it. So, you know, that'll just change there depending on what type of project you're building. So you can just check the boxes as you go down here. These are all of my columns in my sheet. So there are a lot of them that I don't need on the view, right? And you can see there's a lot that I've left out. And then as I click them in, they're going to show up on this side and I can move things around. So maybe I want it to look a little bit different in my dynamic view than it does in my sheet. So I can move things around, move things to the top. Like, so leave canceled is at the very top here because this is the main reason why we use this particular dynamic view. So we can see that, you know, I have that at the very top because that's one of the reasons they come in here. They don't really come and change their hours or anything. Up top here, do I want to display attachments? Sorry, just one second. She said on there, just so you know. Maybe you can, yeah, maybe. Okay, so you can display attachments and display comments, and then you can allow users to add attachments and add comments from your dynamic view. So I do find that really helpful. Maybe you want them to view the attachments, but maybe not add them. Maybe it's like course information. Maybe you just want them to see the courses and you have attachments there for them that correspond to the courses, but you don't want them to add their own attachments, right? So you can do that. You have the ability to move that around there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move over to the details panel, which again is that window that pops up once you click your row. So you can see here, these are all of my available fields, some of which I already have in the middle here. The middle is what my actual details panel looks like. And then as I click into stuff, it's going to show on this side for me to edit. So these are my available fields. This is my actual detail panel layout. And then this is all the different properties, all the different field properties. So do I want to toggle on my details panel description to give a little bit of help text at the beginning? Sure, I can do that if I want to. In this case, I have it off, but if I want to give them a little description in that little window that pops up on the side, I can do that. Which is nice if people don't know that they can hover over the little I button. You know, maybe you want to be very clear about certain instructions, you can do that there. And then focus tab. So when they do open the details panel, what do I want it to focus on? I want it to focus on the data. I can send them straight to attachments. I can send them straight to comments, but I don't really want to do that. In most cases, I would say you're going to put your details. So you can see again, you can toggle back and forth through data, attachments, comments. Mine, I wanted to open up straight to data. And then you can see I can drag this stuff around. I'm just dragging, dropping here. Whenever you're clicked in to this stuff, it's going to open over to the right side and it's going to give me the field properties and it's going to show which one I'm in. So right now I'm in leave canceled. It's going to give me my field name, but like I said, unlike update request, it's going to give me the option to put a custom label in here. So maybe I have a survey, right? And it's like a really long sentence, really long question there, you know. We do have a character limit for columns in Smartsheet. So maybe I want my custom label to be a little bit longer there. So I do have the option to do that if I want to. And then down here, for every field, I have the option to require it. So if I want them to make that update on a specific field and I absolutely want them to give me an update on that, I can require it. I can make it read only, which is a big one because again, if they change it here, it's going to change on your sheet. So if you don't want them touching a certain column, you definitely want to make it read only. And then you can hide it. So you would really only need to use the hide feature if you're allowing new submissions, because otherwise I would just take it off, right? I don't need it. I could just hover over little trash can and it won't be on there anymore, right? But I might use the hide option, like, so for example, with my license requests, if I was allowing license requests through this dynamic view, what I do in my form is I do have it hidden, but it puts the license price in there, right? I already give them, like, tell them this is the price, whatever. But on the back end, I want it to put the price in a column for me. So I have it hidden, but it's always going to give me that default value in my sheet. you know, so that's when you would use that if you are allowing for those new submissions in your dynamic view. If you're not, you would just, you know, use your little trash can here or never put it over here in the first place. And then you do have the ability to do help text, which I find is very helpful. Again, update requests have a time and place, but I really wish you could put help text sometimes, because you can only do that in the body of the email when you're sending an update request in the main sheet. So it is really nice that we can do these custom labels, help text, and then require certain things, hide certain things, which you don't always have those options when you're doing an update request. All right, so then again, you can have it set to like an initial value. So you can see this is a checkbox. So it allows me to do checked, not checked if I want to, or if I toggle over to leave approver, I can do something like, do I want it to automatically come through in the submitted status or something like that? I can do that if I want to. All right, so I want to pause for just a quick second. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we went over so far? Anybody in the chat? Okay. All right, great. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to show you that we haven't touched on yet is, let's say I'm gonna bring department over here. So you can drag it, or you can see if I hover over, it's gonna give me the little plus. If I put the little plus, I believe it adds it to the very end. Let's see real quick. Yeah, so it's gonna add it to the end, and then you'll have to kind of move it up over here. So just keep that in mind. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click into department, and then there's these two little buttons over to the side here. This is our logic. So similar to forms, you have the ability to build logic into your dynamic view. So what I'm gonna say is, in this particular one, right, I'm in department. You can put a name for it, which I do recommend, especially if you're gonna have multiple logic rules in your dynamic view. Oh, do you have to name it? Oh, okay. I thought that it would just automatically put rule 1 for me. Okay, well, that's good to know. I'm gonna put test. Thank you. So, well, and you know what? Yesterday it was giving me issues, and me and Miranda were sitting here, and I was like, that's how you do it. I don't know what's going on. So let's see if it works for me today. But just for the purpose of the presentation, you do have access to logic. So I'm gonna say when department is one of budget and facilities, because it's already red on me. What is it doing? So budget and facilities, my action is, what do I want to do? Do I want to hide the following fields? Do I want to show the following fields as read only? So maybe budget and facilities, maybe they don't need certain columns, or maybe the opposite. Maybe they need extra columns on their leave requests or something like that. So I'm going to go in here and kind of just put a couple of things, and then it gives me, okay, it's working today, I guess. So then I'm going to click save. Oh wait, I shouldn't have clicked save because I changed stuff, but whatever. So now I have that logic. So now if they're in my dynamic view and they click budget and facilities, it's going to show the following fields as editable. Whereas for my other departments, it won't do that, right? Because I have this logic built in. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I don't want to mess stuff up, because this is a live dynamic view. All right. So again, we have that logic there. I'm going to take department. Okay. All right. So the last little bit of creating your dynamic view is sharing. So you can see here that I am the owner. If I want to, I can transfer ownership. I really try to mention this to everybody. Whenever I, as a system admin, if I am transferring your items after you leave or something like that, it's a lot easier for you to transfer dynamic views and calendar and all these things beforehand, because when I do a bulk transfer, that's only your sheets, your dashboards, your reports. It does not transfer the dynamic views over. So there are times where people reach out to me later and they're like, we don't have this dynamic view. This person left months ago, and we have to work with Smartsheet to get that corrected. So you do want to transfer ownership. You can only transfer ownership, and then me too, because as a system admin, I can come in after the fact and like individually transfer these, but they have to be an admin on your sheet, on your dynamic view. So if you have, like in this one, I don't have any admins, so I should probably fix that. And I would maybe want to add Dina or something. So in the future, if something happens and we have to change it, we can easily transfer. So you do want to have at least one person as backup in your admins there. And then we can add emails that will receive access to this view. So I can go in here, I can add people individually if I want to. You'll see that I have this shared to a group. So not everyone has group admin access. If you are on the HSE side, just let me know and I could give you that access. So you can create groups in Smartsheet. In this case, I have a financial services group. There's a lot of people in there. I keep that up to date. And then my dynamic views are up to date because I have it all done on the group end of it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about shared domains. So we can add multiple domains in here. So it doesn't just have to be Salud, so I can come in here and put salud.unm.edu. Whenever you do this, hit enter, so it'll actually save it, and you'll know that it's working if it doesn't give you like a red little X error message or anything, and it puts it in there like that. So now I can come in here and I could say unm.edu. Maybe it's for main campus too, right? So I can come in and add all of those things. So just keep that in mind. Again, this is where it becomes important. If you're sharing to domain, you probably do want to restrict by the current user, right? Because again, you saw I clicked into some of those views where I was shared by the domain, but I don't actually have access because it's probably restricted by the user. So, we don't really want to be sharing information widely, especially data we would maybe deem as somewhat sensitive, right? So just keep that in mind when you are sharing to domains, because let's say you have like your project information on here and it's not restricted by user. I could stumble across it and I'm just like, it might not be a big deal if I do, but I'll be able to kind of go in there, and especially if you have stuff editable, I can just kind of go in there and change some stuff. So just be mindful of your sharing and how you're doing that. All right. Okay. So I'm going to discard these changes. I'm going to go back to the view. Oh. All right. So again, does anyone have any questions about dynamic view as of yet? Anybody in the Zoom? All right, so just a little bit of information here. I do want to let everybody know that the best way to use dynamic view is going to be in Chrome or Firefox or Safari if you use Apple. Any of the other browsers can be a bit outdated. I think Edge might still work. I don't know if a lot of people still use Internet Explorer, but sometimes your browser is set to Internet Explorer. Hopefully not so much anymore, but just keep in mind that if you give someone access to this dynamic view and their browser is automatically linking to Internet Explorer, it's going to be blank, even if they should be seeing stuff. So that is confusing, right, to some people. So we do not want Internet Explorer at all. But other browsers, you should be okay. You will want to test those things, of course, right? So another thing, oh, geez. Zoom, okay. All right, I wish that would go away. Sorry, guys. All right, so another thing I want to let you know, you may have noticed that there was not really, as we were going through the settings, there's not like a link to grab from anywhere, right? There wasn't a link through the settings. So when I'm in the view right here, this is the link. So up here on your URL, when you are in there, that is the link you will distribute to people. You'll send it through email, or maybe you'll shorten it nicely on like a dashboard, or you'll put it on your website to look nice and that sort of thing. But that is the URL. So just keep that in mind, because I have got that question sometimes. People are like, well, how do I share it? Where's the link? Like, what do I do there? So yeah, just keep that in mind. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle back over to our presentation. If there are no other questions, again, feel free to unmute or throw them in the chat. I'm going to try to get back over here. Okay, I think I have to, this has been weird for me all day. Okay, sorry, it started at the beginning. Definitely want to do that. Bless you. Okay, I'm gonna just, does that let me kind of go to the one? Yes, okay, cool. All right, awesome. Okay, so we might have covered this a little bit, but best practices for dynamic views. So keep views simple and task focused. Again, your view panel does not need to be muddied up with all of the columns from your sheet. It really is just to identify what the row is. I mean, you might have a different use for dynamic view for some instances, but I would say for most, we want to keep it very simple, minimal columns there. And then really you'll want to dive into all those columns on your details panel if you are going to need people to edit and change those. Limit visible data to what's necessary. Again, the great thing about dynamic view is we can edit those fields. We can't always do that in update requests. So, limit those and make it very clean to what you need and what you need them to see. Regularly review permissions. So this kind of goes for everything. We want to keep those groups up to date, the dynamic views up to date, that sort of thing. So, you do want to keep those in order there. Provide clear user instructions. So again, unlike update requests, not to rag on update requests because they are great, but you can't add that extra instruction in the update requests, right? So we do want to utilize that feature for sure. All right, so some resources in getting started. If you have been in any of my sessions, you will have already seen these, but I do think that it is important for people who maybe weren't in any of the prior sessions, at least mine. So licensed users can create, own, administer new sheets, reports, dashboards, dynamic views, calendar apps, premium apps, all those things. Create and customize forms, automated workflows, and proofing requests. And a trial user can also do all those things on a 30-day free trial. So make sure that you have those items transferred, or make sure to get a new license before that 30-day trial ends. A free user can access all of the things that a licensed user creates, so they can be shared to existing sheets, reports, dashboards, and dynamic views. Collaborate by viewing, updating cell data, adding comments, attaching files, reviewing proofs, and submitting forms. So they can interact with your sheet, your dynamic view that you create for them. The UNM main campus, their license cost at this time is $649 and can be purchased through UNM software distribution, and the HSC licenses are $689, and they go through me. I do have a dashboard on our single sign-on page, so if you wait a minute, a dashboard will pop up, and the link to request a license, cancel a license, or transfer a license is on that page. So that's where you'll go if you do need to request a Smartsheet license. All right, so some resources for learning more. So Smartsheet Help and Learning Center is always a great resource. The community forums, you can go to Google, type in stuff, it's gonna pop up in the community and someone is gonna have an answer for you, I'm sure. I've always found my answers on there. Smartsheet University has dynamic view trainings. They have multiple trainings, both instructor-led and self-paced. If you have a license, you do have access to Smartsheet University, so definitely browse through there. They have a lot of free trainings. They also have some paid ones, but absolutely utilize that as a resource. It's a great resource. We do hold internal training sessions. You guys know that as you're in one right now. But we also hold others, just here and there. We'll send out that information in our newsletter or our Teams page, which are our other resources. So if you haven't already, join our Smartsheet user group because we do try to give you a lot of information there. We'll talk to you about outages, any new features, things like that. And also, again, when we do hold these types of training sessions, we're gonna send them out to the Teams page and the newsletters. That's where we're gonna send them out first. So if you want to be in the loop there, definitely join that. And also, it's a great resource for if it's kind of our own little community where if you have a question, you can type it and post in there. Everyone has access to be able to post on our Teams page. For me and Dina, we try to monitor it pretty frequently, but other people will chime in too and just help everybody on there. So it's really helpful. Yeah, very helpful. All right, so we are ending a little bit early, so definitely take back your time. But if you have any questions, I will hang on for a little while, and of course in here too. So let me know if you guys have any questions about really anything at all, but dynamic view specifically or anything else. I will hang around, but otherwise, thank you for joining.
Hey, Jillian, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I have a sheet, and every month I meet with my director and I go over, because it's for our clinical trials. I'm at the CTSC. So I have the sheet, we put all our active trials into the sheet. And then when I meet with my director, she wants to see each month she wants to see like how many pharma trials, how many federal trials. And then, so what I've been doing is I've been just making reports from my sheet for all that. And then, but when I'm presenting it, like in our Zoom meeting, I have to switch between the different reports. So like I have to have them all up there, and then I have to go through. So we're going over the pharma trial. So I have to pull up that report, and then I have to switch to the federal report. So I was thinking I could use dynamic view for this instead of that. And I thought that maybe that would help me from not having to go switching through these different reports like on my screen. But now I'm wondering if, I don't know if it's like too complicated, if it'd be easier. Would I have to create a dynamic view for each report and then I would still have to do switching, or?
So there are actually a few different ways I would probably go about this. I think I would probably do a dashboard, honestly. I think a dashboard would be the best. You can also put some nice visuals on there, right? For all the different ones. If you did want to do a dynamic view, you definitely could. What I would probably do is I would have it roll up and then have filters in the dynamic view that I could just toggle through the filters. So that's definitely an option. I would say dynamic view is more for editing. So if you're more so presenting to your director, then I think that a dashboard would be the way to go, because you already have the reports built. You can just embed those reports on the dashboard. So you can just kind of scroll through it, right? You can do that, or you can even point some charts to your reports and have kind of a nice visual for them. So I really think I would start with dashboards. And then if you're thinking a dynamic view could be helpful, then you can kind of go from there, and maybe filters would be helpful there.
Okay, so the dynamic view is better for like, if we're like what you were showing, like if you're like tracking like requests and things like that, and like certain fields should be like available for some people and not others and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's more of a way to get like people to be able to change data in your sheet without accessing your sheet. So if your director was going in, looking through all the different information, and then maybe they have their own piece, right? Maybe they have to fill in their comments, or then maybe they have to put data in on their end, then that would maybe be a use case for a dynamic view. But if you're just reporting to them and you're just having a meeting showing them all the different things, and they really don't have a piece in that puzzle, then it would probably be a dashboard that would be the most helpful for you.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
So I've got a question.
Yeah.
So I work in HR core division, and so I work across everything.
Yeah.
Campuses, right, everywhere. And so we're working on getting some of our requests moved into Smartsheet instead of coming through like fillable PDFs or something.
Yes.
So we're using dynamic view because obviously, right, like we don't want other departments to know if what one department is asking for isn't the business of another department.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so we're doing this with classifications for posting, like when people submit a job request, right? And so it's so I've set it up for dynamic view, and that filter is really helpful, right? So they can only see the requests that they've asked for.
Yes.
But there are sometimes situations where we need additional information, and there's kind of email. Right now, it's just email communications back and forth. And so I've been playing around with different ways to try and like set up automations or through the comment function, but it's because we're designing it for the entire university, we need it to be like as user friendly as possible.
Yes.
Because this may be like the first time or the only time someone is interacting with the Smartsheet program. And so I thought, initially it was like setting up in the comments, right, where you use the @ sign. where it would like send automatic notifications, and it was like, well, that feels really fraught, right?
Mhm.
And so then it was like, okay, well, now we can do comments, and then I set up an automatic workflow, but it got really obnoxious because it was like, you can only set it up for every comment that goes through,
Yes,
and so
and
it
it's
was
not
like,
specific.
yes,
Yes.
yeah. And
Makes
so
sense.
I'm
Mhm.
trying to figure out like what would be the best way to allow conversation between, you know, like someone in the comp department and someone, you know, from the other department.
Yeah,
I guess kind of mimics email.
Yeah, so okay, yeah. So to kind of keep all those communications within Smartsheet, but you don't necessarily want automations to be going off, but then at mentioning maybe isn't the best because
I just
they
think
might not
that's-
at mention,
Yeah.
like they might just
Yeah.
think like, oh, this is gonna tell them.
Exactly.
That's a good question. Let me think on that a little bit.
I'm really struggling with this one.
That's a hard one, that's a hard one. Huh. Okay. I'm wondering if, yeah, that's hard because ideally conversations should be like where you can capture that.
Yes, I agree.
But
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, we can just train everyone. And my boss was like, are we really gonna train everyone? And I was like, okay, good point.
yeah,
No.
yeah, no, that's hard. And then there's always, you know, that's why I say we gotta use descriptions, we gotta use help text and all these things because there's always user error, right? Or like, you know, they miss a little comment or something, you know, you can even say in the description, like, please make sure to use the at sign to at mention people, but then maybe they at and then they space and then they type the name or something or
mistype the name,
Yeah,
misspell the
yeah, you
name
never
or
know.
something. Yeah, it just feels a little.
yeah, that's a good question and I might have to think on it a little bit and maybe I can
Yeah.
get back to you on it.
I know that's like a super specific thing too.
Yeah, just because I mean like do you have like a separate sheet that is for communications or like what do we do there?
And then I
But
was
even
thinking-
then, I mean,
I know, and then I was thinking like maybe we can just do it by email and then like within the comp department, because then there's just, you know, 5 of us to train up, like we can then attach
yeah.
the email chain. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm sure that you've went through the pros and cons of that. Like that's my first thought process is I mean, communications are great, but like you said, you're already running into the limitations of it and what it can and can't do. I know that I helped someone with a process recently where they were kind of like, do we put our emails and communications through Smartsheet? Do we not? And it did come to the point where it was just like, no, like we're gonna like this is just to gather the information and all communication is gonna stay on email. But then everyone just kind of needs to be on board with that. And then like you said, then you can go and save your email, attach it to the row so it's on there and everything. I mean, I think that would be my first thought, but I mean, I don't think it hurts to kind of brainstorm a little bit and try to see if there are other options, but I will say that I can't think offhand just what that might be,
yeah.
you know, like
And I
what,
was thinking the like request update, which you had talked
Yeah.
about in her presentation, but then I was
Yeah.
like, but I don't want anyone to have access, like outside of our department, no one needs access to the main sheet.
yeah, the only other thing, okay, it's just hard because there's always, I guess, a bit of training that comes along with it. Cause I was just thinking, I was like, you could always have a comments column. Like, and you can have a workflow built on that, but then they would maybe need to know that they could override the previous comment or something, you know?
Oh, sure.
You know, so
Yeah.
then there's always that, either are they like adding to the comment itself or, you know, so there's always a bit of like a
Will it
con,
show
I
the
guess.
history though? Will you be able to look at the history within where they put
Yeah.
something in?
You can always look
Because
at
I
the
was
cell
showing that-
history.
That's really helped me. Looking
Yeah.
at the cell history, see who did what when.
Sure.
Yeah, you can always look at the cell history, but I think the issue itself is just, does this person know that they can override this comment or, you know, so there's always a bit of learning because that's the same thing like, well, if we're gonna do that, then why don't we just teach them to at mention properly? And so it's just always a bit of a thing. So I would say my initial thought would be to keep email communications outside, which is kind of unfortunate because it'd be great to put those in. But, yeah, but that would be my first thought. Just because you've already run into a little bit of limitations, but if I think of something, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of a hard one.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah.
I've been stuck there for a few weeks, like trying to maybe if I do this and set these automation, and then I tested it with a couple of colleagues, and they were like, "Man, these notifications are obnoxious."
Yeah, it's just too much, right?
Yeah,
right.
it was way too much. And it was like, okay, well, that'll make it really easy for people to ignore it. So
Exactly,
that's
and you
not
don't
the
want
solution.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah, of course. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, and as with any application, sometimes we do just run into those where it's kind of like, okay, I guess I'm not gonna do this in Smartsheet, and I'm gonna do the email portion outside of it or whatever. I find that that's what we did with the last process. So
Okay.
yeah.
Not just maybe where people are.
Yeah. I am going to go ahead and end this call. I don't want to make it hard for Dana to later. So, all right. So anyone kind of still in the Zoom, I'm gonna go ahead and take off. But if you have questions, feel free to email me.